going to invite you to continue with your lunch while we begin the program. I'm Dr. Dean Ludwig, Dean of the College of Business and Leadership at Lourdes University, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome you to our 2013 Joseph M. Magliochetti Leadership Summit, hosted by Lourdes Masters of Organizational Leadership Program and their alumni. It's really exciting to see this many people in this room for a program that's really focused on the integration of business, leadership, and faith. I apologize if your elbow room is a little bit tight, but we wanted to accommodate as many people as possible to today's program, and even at that we had to turn a few folks away. So thank you for being understanding about that. I want to thank all of the distinguished professionals, alumni, and Lourdes University Interim President Janet Robinson for joining us this afternoon. We are gathered today to focus on the topic, the vocation of the business leader. The individuals who will speak to you today have made a tremendous impact in our region. They have done so using values that Lourdes business graduates have learned are so vital, values that we believe are needed in the marketplace. Lourdes University is very proud of the value-centered education that we offer to our students. We are truly grounded in the Franciscan values, our four Franciscan values of community, learning, reverence, and service. In recognition of these values, we will start by inviting Dr. Pat O'Connell, Associate Professor of Business and Leadership, to come forward and lead us in a prayer.
Lord, thank you for bringing us together to celebrate the wonderful and holy vocations of these exemplary business leaders in our community. Please help each of us to hear your call and embrace our vocations as business leaders and guardians of the common good. We pray for your guidance to integrate our faith and our hope into our work each and every day. Bless the food we eat today and the work we do. And in the spirit of St. Francis of Assisi, always make us instruments of your peace. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pat. This Leadership Summit is actually several years old, but this is the first year that it has a name associated with it. Joseph M. Magliochetti, former president and CEO of the Dana Corporation, was truly an honorable person and business leader. Dr. Samuel Johnson, a well-known English poet, moralist, biographer, lexicographer, said it best: the true measure of a man is how he treats someone who can do him absolutely no good. This quote personified Joe. Those who had the good fortune of working with him or for him appreciated his style and his ethical style of leadership. Kathy Magliochetti, who's with us this morning, his loving wife and partner in life, dearly wanted to pay tribute to Joe, his life, and his legacy. She chose to establish the Lourdes University Joseph M. Magliochetti Endowed Chair of Business and Finance. Fortunately for all of us, this annual Leadership Summit, named in Joe's honor, is made possible from the proceeds of that endowed chair. Lourdes is truly honored to further Joe's mission and leadership style. We humbly accept that challenge, Kathy, in preparing tomorrow's business leaders. Kathy chose Lourdes because our strong business and leadership curriculum infuses those values and ethics for which Joe was known. At this time, I would like to thank Kathy and her children for their very generous gift. Kathy, our region will benefit tremendously. From business owner to citizen who called Northwest Ohio home, we will prosper with the strong, ethical leaders in business and finance that your gift will make possible. I thank you very much. And I want to invite Kathy up, but I also want to acknowledge we have 2 more generations of Joseph Magliochettis with us this morning, Joe and Joey. And in addition to that, Kathy's daughter Amy was not able to be here. Her son Andy is in Washington, where they are giving out another Joseph Magliochetti Award, the Joseph Magliochetti Industry Champion Award. So, Kathy, thank you. Please say a word.
To be here, and so happy to be able to do this. To remember my husband and Joe's dad and Joey's grandpa this way. Joe would be so delighted with this honor, and nowhere more than with Lourdes University. And I thank Lourdes University for giving me and my family the opportunity to do this. We're very grateful, and I think Joe's here. I think he's smiling at everyone. Thank you.
Quickly, the curriculum. What does it mean to have an M.O.L? You know, we studied things for 4 hours once a week on Thursday nights for almost 2.5 years. Courses and curriculum like leadership characteristics, traits of successful people, ethics in leadership, diversity, strategic and critical thinking. You know, what that means in the business world. We've all heard the expression, you know, all you have to do to be successful is get the right people on the bus. But most of us know it's not easy to find the right people. This curriculum actually gave us tools and scientific analysis of how to find the right people, which was wonderful. And at the same time, the ethics course, you know, I felt like some of the greatest minds and brilliant thinkers of all time were in the rooms with us. Socrates, Aristotle, St. Francis, Gandhi. They were guiding us and helping us put forth a moral compass to help steer your bus to know that you're always going to go in the right direction. Another class I mentioned was diversity. In the past, I had shunned diversity classes, thinking that I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up in New York. I knew diversity. It might have even been a minority in my high school and didn't even know it. And so I went through the class, and I'll never forget, one assignment was to go to somebody's house, and the whole group of us watched the film Crash through the night and discussed it. It shook me to the core. It changed my entire paradigm, and I was horrified at how I viewed the role of minorities and diversity in the workplace. So in brief, this program, I call it a education-based program fused with the soul of integrity, changed my world. And I know I'm speaking for the roughly 250 graduates of this program in the 10 years since its inception, that it's also been a wonderful, enhancing career, personal, and professional move. The summit, the first summit in 2010, was titled Shining a Bright Light into the Future. We had executives from First Solar giving a talk, and I know they'd be proud of where we are. The future is bright. I'd like to again thank the Magliochetti family by what they're doing. It means to me there'll be many future students in the leadership program attending summits and attending university to provide a successful and moral compass to leadership to better themselves, their organizations, and the community. So, thank you. I don't know about you,
but my light reading doesn't typically include papal encyclicals or even documents from pontifical councils. My heavy reading doesn't include those. But when I first saw this document last summer, its title, The Vocation of the Business Leader, I was intrigued. As I started reading it, I was taken with much that it had to say. It essentially describes how business leadership, if well lived, can be an honorable or even a noble profession. If you will, it's an apologetic for the business profession. I think we all need to hear this. I'm sure we have all heard of medicine and teaching described as noble professions, even though we all know there are good and bad doctors and good and bad teachers. But when was the last time you heard of business being described as a noble profession? Instead, we suffer from images of the likes of Gordon Gekko in the movie Wall Street, who proudly proclaimed, "Greed is good." I've taught business ethics for over 25 years, and I've suffered the comment, seriously delivered, "Isn't business ethics an oxymoron?" way too many times. And sadly, we all do know business leaders who are less than honorable, far less than noble, for whom greed is good and business ethics is an oxymoron. Having said that, in almost 30 years in business in Northwest Ohio, I have met far more business leaders whom I would describe as honorable or even noble. These are individuals who have given of themselves generously and altruistically for the benefit of the community, simply because they could. These are genteel individuals who treat everyone they meet with respect and dignity. These are individuals whose word is definitely as good as their bond. Individuals that you can instinctively trust. These are individuals who have made available to local, national, and global markets truly good products and services that have improved the lives of multitudes. These are individuals who have mentored and guided younger members of our community to carry on in this noble tradition. And these are individuals who have provided jobs, income, and therefore hope and dignity to thousands of individuals and their families who may have otherwise struggled without hope or without dignity. I'm sure as I ticked off that litany, specific individuals came to mind for you. People that you have known in this community that have done both well and good. There have been giants in our community that we all recognize. Names like Dick Anderson, John Savage, Chuck Oswald, Jim Finley, Maynard Sauter, and many others quickly come to mind. But there are far more quiet examples. Small businessmen and women who have, through their work, made our community so much better, who have never forgotten their responsibility for the common good. Indeed, if well lived, business leadership can be, has been, is, and will always be a noble profession. I know that the business and leadership faculty, some of whom are here today at Lourdes, would not be dedicating their lives to the education of future business leaders unless we truly believe this. This, for us, is an integral component of business education and what we do. We feel it's a direct extension of those Franciscan values that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Please welcome Kevin Sock.
See if the audio can get this thing working. All right. I will hold it. Works better that way. Well, I am so honored to be here to speak with you today. I am also pleased to be on the podium with my big sister Debbie David, at our solder table. We have her husband David, my brother-in-law Garrett Kinsman, who's our EVP of Operations. We have a couple of folks from our solder village, Todd Sturkin, Director of Development, and Corey Snelser, our Director of Finance. A couple of our board members, Dean Spangler from Spangler Candy, he's on both the solder village board and the solder woodworking board. And Ed Nausiger from Osdor, he's on the solder village board. Bill Bontrager is the head of our solder manufacturing contract furniture side, and my lovely wife Sandy. So it's really great to have all of you here and to talk about something that is very important to all of us. I think people see certain types of business and certain business leaders a little differently, and we hopefully walk the walk and talk the talk, and we don't separate the life we live at work from the life we live at home or the life we live in our church community as well. It's all part of one. I'm going to talk a little bit about our history. I try to do that in 3 slides. That's kind of hard with a 78-year-old company. We'll start with the original factory. Came in a barn. My grandfather, Erie, was an entrepreneur in the truest sense of the word. Worked down the street at the Archibald Ladder Company, decided he could do things better himself, put out a shingle, and decided to start making things out of wood. He made kitchen cabinets, he made church furniture, he made tables, he made all kinds of things. He survived 2 disastrous fires and had the whole story of building a business from nothing a few times over. He, in the early 50s, he invented the first piece of ready-to-assemble furniture. It was called knockdown furniture at the time. One of his buyers, at a department store in Detroit, had been buying a number of his setup tables, his occasional tables that he built. And he says, you know, Erie, if you could just like knock that down and put it in a box and make it so that anybody in the household could assemble this thing, I think I could sell a lot more, and you could put a lot more on a truck. So he went back and he figured out how to do that. He tinkered with it for a while. He made it basically out of scraps. That's a frame that's made from scraps from a broom factory in Oregon. He figured out he could get the wood for free as long as he paid for the rail to get it from Oregon to Archibald. The top, the wood grain top, is actually a printed glass top. They printed wood grain on the back of the glass so that it had a very durable surface and a wood-like finish. And that way he didn't have to have any real lumber. He just had sticks and glass. And he could sell it for pittance. And he made a lot of money on that. He also beat IKEA to the punch by 2 years. I was in Sweden and I went to their museum, and their first RTA piece was in 1955 and ours is in 1953. So I'm kind of proud of that. My father and my uncle M.O.L joined the business in the 50s and the early 60s. They were quite a team, and they really embraced automation, innovation, and riding the wave. They got in on the ground floor of when all the big discounters, big Target, Walmart, Kmart, all started in 1962. And they all started rising, and we could make furniture that would sell where people shopped every week, not every quarter, like a furniture store. So they were in there all the time, and our product fit on a gondola. Back up until 1989, I think all of our desks were only 22 inches deep because that was the depth of a Kmart gondola at the time. I finally came back in 88 and helped to develop some desks that are actually real office desks, 30 inches deep and 36 inches deep. But we focused around serving the large discount retailers. We were able to make furniture in high quantities. We brought in the first panel saw from Europe. The Gieben saw was the first one in the United States that could cut a whole stack of 10 4x10 sheets of board. make small rectangles out of big rectangles and put edge band on them and drill holes in them and put little sticks and make etagères. That was one of our best-selling items. We go to the next slide. This is where we are today. The third generation is running the business now. I'm the CEO. Garrett Tinsman is our EVP of Operations, and my cousin Dan, Merle's son, is our EVP of New Product Development and New Markets and Engineering. But, and we joined the business with 3 rules. My dad and my Uncle Merle decided, you know, family businesses have a tendency to suffer too much from nepotism, particularly for unqualified nepotism. And so if I want my kids and grandkids to come, they need to be qualified. They need to bring something to the business. So they set out 3 things. They said, anybody's welcome. There were 12 of us in the third generation. But you got to do 3 things. You have to get the best education possible. Graduate degree, hopefully an engineering degree, something like that. Second, you work somewhere else in a meaningful way and you're successful there, where your name means nothing. And third, you come back for a job that we have posted on the board. You apply for it, you get it, you get the perks that go with that job or not with that job. You know, you only get what that job is qualified for, and you work your way up from there. Good luck. So 3 of us did that. Actually, Debbie sort of did it around about the other way through this other village, and ended up there. So we separate the rights of ownership from the rights of management. All 12 of us essentially own the same amount of stock and get the benefits of the corporation doing well through dividends. But 3 of us in management are also paid a market wage and bonus and try to deliver the goods. If we can deliver the goods, then we should be paid. So we have tried to take the things that our father and grandfathers brought to the party, make beautiful furniture. I'd like to say we make wonderful furniture that everyone can afford. And we can still do it in the United States and pay $15 or $16 an hour, non-union good wages in Archibald, Ohio. And I think we bring good things to a lot of people here. Our direct labor costs are still only less than 8% of our sales. So we've done it through automation and innovation. If you've ever been to our factory or have ever seen it, it's a very capital-intensive operation. The company itself is kind of made up of 2 sides of the business, the for-profit side and the not-for-profit side. The solid woodworking company then is kind of, we have the ready-to-assemble furniture, which most of it is domestic. We do import some product from China and other parts of Asia, things like metal and glass furniture, some wooden veneers, some seating, things that really can't be competitively made in the United States for low price points. But it's more of a complementary kind of product. Souder Manufacturing, which was spun off as a separate subsidiary in 1945, they are one of the leading manufacturers of both church furniture, healthcare seating, and educational seating. And Phil runs that company with his team, and it's a great operation, 100% owned subsidiary. Progressive Furniture is a company that we purchased in 2001. They make traditional wood case goods, wood furniture. Most of that is made in a factory in Mexico, out of solid pine. Very nice product line. The total corporation for the for-profit side is about $480 million in sales, and we have about 2,400 employees. Most of them are in Archibald. We have a small factory in Stryker, Ohio, and the healthcare factory in Grayville, Indiana. Souder Village, then, is the 501c3 corporation that Debbie runs, and that has all kinds of things. Many of you, I'm sure, have been there to this historic Souder Village, the Founders Hall, Doughbox Bakery, Bar and Restaurant, the inn, the campground, all those fun things that we have. So we had the for-profit and non-for-profit there for a few years. We were kind of both non-profit, but we worked our way out of that. Our key customers for the RTA side are the biggest retailers in America. Big, strong folks like Walmart, Target, Office Depot, Staples, Lowe's. We make all the kitchen cabinets, actually, for IKEA here in North America. You probably don't know that because it doesn't have our logo on it. But, you know, we make rectangles with holes, and kitchen cabinets are made out of rectangles with holes. So we figured we could do that well, and they like us. They were just in yesterday again. We are one of the largest vendors for them in North America, and we've been to Sweden a number of times. I've been asked to be part of some of their major conferences and that kind of thing. So that's kind of an interesting relationship that we've had. Our mission for the RTA side is creating better ways to offer better value for better living. Again, it's sort of through innovation we can create value and helps people's lives better. We've pretty much paved over that side of town. Dad liked to build big brown buildings, and he built a lot of them. Yes, it is a little over 100 acres on the roof. And so we don't use quite all of it anymore. When we did some of our downsizing in 2007, 2008, we emptied out some parts of the buildings, but we're slowly filling some of that back up. We've been able to hire back over 300 people just in the last 2 years, which is exciting. I've talked about solder manufacturing. They make a beautiful product. It's all high-end custom product that fills dorm rooms and churches and hospital rooms with great furniture. And progressive furniture, like I said, is making a lot of bedroom furniture. Our core values then that we have specified are things that typically you see in core values: respect, integrity, but we've added stewardship and servanthood. Stewardship, you know, being a third generation, we don't really want to be rags to riches to rags like a lot of the third generation does to the business. So we have to be good stewards of the business. We have to run it well. We have to make good decisions. We can't bet the farm on anything. But we have to be conscious of what's been given to us and what we can do with that. And the servanthood side, you know, I've got a bronze statue that my dad had in his office, and I have his office, and it's of Jesus washing feet, and it just reminds us that we are to serve others, and that we're here to be good stewards and good servants of what we've been given. It crosses over into our views of sustainability and trying to be good stewards of our environment. You know, we live in our town with our factory. We want it to be clean too. We want it to be a place where people want to live and to work. Next slide. So some of our desired outcomes, you know, why are we doing this? What do we want to do? Well, we want to provide for employees things like generous wages, generous benefits, and attractive growth and learning opportunities. We want it to be a great place to work, a place that they want their family to come to work for. Our average tenure now, throughout the company, the factory and everything, is about 18 years, average tenure. They just don't leave. Now we're paying for more health care these days. But still dedicated, devoted workforce, which is wonderful. We also want to increase customer satisfaction, shareholder value, be responsible community citizens, and have a heartfelt pride by all stakeholders. You know, when I look out my window when I'm in my office at 2:30 every day, and I see hundreds of cars driving by my office. That's the first shift getting off. Every one of those cars has an owner with a car payment that's depending on me to make the right decisions. And I think about it every day. It's very important. Finally, my presentation will end with some of the statements that we've done for our core beliefs. We developed this with some of the folks at Solder Manufacturing as well. And it brings in a little bit of the spirit of what we're talking about today. We believe everyone is a spiritual being on a human journey. We believe that our talents and resources are given by God and are to be used for our own needs and to serve the well-being of others. Furthermore, we believe all of us share in the responsibility of creating an environment based on openness and mutual respect, fostering continuous growth as individuals and as an organization. I'm going to turn it over to my sister Debbie, and she'll talk a little bit more about Solder Village. Debbie.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm glad you could join me for this event, and that we were so privileged and honored to have Dean Lourdes ask us to be a part of this presentation. I've had the honor to serve on the Business Leadership Advisory Council at Lourdes and to speak to the leadership classes at the College of Business. And I'm always impressed by the difference that a Lourdes student is presented with. And it really is in line with our core values as a Solder family of businesses. When you think about the service, and you think about the reverence, and you think about the community, those are all things that we've heard echo in our ears over the generations. And I also want to thank Dean for mentioning something that my dad talks about. Maynard Sauer, our father, of course, talks about, you hire the best people, they're always smarter than you, and you get out of their way, you give them the tools they need, and together you can make something great. And we've continued that tradition, and we're so pleased to have some of our key leaders with us as well. He also told me, and I called him in Florida to say, Dad, what would you say if you were able to be there? And he said, I really always felt like business was a calling. Business was my calling. And often people said, Maynard, you could be a preacher. Because he had a pretty good gift of gab, and he was pretty, pretty good on his feet. And he said, I think I talk to more people in a week than my preacher does. And I can surely support all of those folks and all of those ministries through my success as a business person in giving back to the community. So I want to just introduce that concept and say how pleased and how fitting all of this is, and to be on the panel with the Andersons. Wow. We have Dick Anderson on our board at Souder Village, and he also had served on the Souder Woodworking Board, so I'm just really lucky to learn from them. Of course, many of you have been at Souder Village, and our product is our experiences. We offer our guests experiences rich in history, hospitality, creativity, and fun. And we've been celebrating the past and inspiring the future since 1976. So let's go back to the beginning. Heidi, if you give me the next slide. You can see my grandpa in those early years of the village. Back in 1976, I was a college student out in California and came home to be a tour guide at my grandpa's new project. And this was all during the time that our father was taking over the day-to-day responsibilities, and our Uncle Merle also at the factory, and things were just going gangbusters. And really, they were pretty glad that their father, an entrepreneur of entrepreneurs, had something to do to stay out of their hair. Those entrepreneurs, they are passionate, and our grandpa here, he surely was passionate. And he was passionate about kids, he was passionate about learning, and he was passionate about learning in a tangible, interactive way. School was hard for him, and he knew that if somebody didn't preserve the tangible history, like he said, it will be lost forever. And how best to instill those values in kids? We're talking about values today. And the values are what Souder Village teaches every day. You can walk through time and you can experience it. And what he was troubled, the whole impetus for why he started Souder Village was, as furniture manufacturing became more and more automated, he thought work looked too easy. And those kids walking by those machines just thought work was just too easy. And he said, all of us over 20 know that money doesn't fall from trees. And you gotta work for it, you gotta sweat. And he wanted to show how you made furniture the old-fashioned way. So he picked up some of his tools and his first shop, and just like a Pied Piper, all of a sudden the buildings started coming in, and one more thing, and one more thing, and then the creature comforts in the old barn to have good comfort food, and to create those memories and that sense of community and families. And he employed people, and people of all abilities and ages. He had one guy that his doctor told him he couldn't do any more work ever. And Walt said to my grandpa, Erie, he said, the doctor told me I have to just stay home, and I can't take it. And he says, well, Walt, we'll find a job for you. Well, 20 years later, Walt was still our breaker person out in the village. I think he really lived longer because he had a purpose. And that's part of what this whole thing is about. Giving people a sense of purpose, helping them feel a part of something bigger than themselves, and giving back to the community. So let's talk about what Souder Village is today. I'll take the next slide, Heidi. Some of those pictures you probably recognize, and if you haven't been there in a while, you might not realize that now we have over 235 acres, and we preserve, this is good stewardship, of course, historic preservation, 75 historic structures, over 50,000 artifacts. Over 280,000 people are impacted by our services every year throughout the complex. We have now, to tell those stories and to have those experiences, takes 400 paid full-time, part-time, and seasonal staff of all ages, 400 adult volunteers, all the way up to age 90 plus, and 200 youth volunteers, which is a program we're really pleased about. Our junior historian program services more than 45 communities. We have over 200 children ages 10 to 16 that are getting their first work experience as a volunteer. And they're learning the essence of volunteerism, giving back. And they're paired up with a grandma or grandpa of sorts and our older interpreters. And they're learning what it means to show up to work on time and to treat guests as guests. And so it takes a whole village to create the village. And of course, since our grandpa was a craftsman and a woodworker of sorts, like many of the Andersons I know are quite good woodworkers, he hired and engaged some very talented artisans and craftsmen. You may be very familiar with our glassblower Mark Matthews and our potter Mark Nafsinger, really world-renowned. But again, my grandpa did what my dad did, and he gave them the tools and the ideas to make something that nobody else was making, gave them the support they needed to unleash their entrepreneurship and make a go of it. And so we have many fine craftsmen and, of course, many special events. But, you know, it was also about some creature comforts and some things that go along with coming to a destination. I'll take the next slide there, Heidi. We have many different things, which some of you, I'm sure, have enjoyed. Our barn restaurant, the Old Barn, a 350-seat restaurant. We have a 98-room inn. If you haven't been there, it's lovely. In a campground with 48 sites, a little lake here, you can go fishing and everything and use the pool at the inn. We've got a Founders Hall if you've been there for conventions or weddings or special events, seat 750. A bakery, of course, some of my favorite goodies. And our retail environment. And all those parts of Souder Village not only make it a destination and an economic engine for the community, but it really helps support the mission of the historic village. All the revenues from those hospitality areas, along with our retail, along with admissions and memberships and public donations, go to support the mission of the historic village, which was my grandpa's dream, to try to teach kids the values of hard work of our ancestors that made a livelihood in this black swamp. Teach them the value of honesty and helping your neighbor, of working as a community, and of investing in the future. Being innovative and creative. And all those values are what we're talking about today. And who else could say it better than my grandpa himself? Although he passed away in 1997, we have a little snippet of him, and I hear it in my head every day. My husband was laughing. He said, if the video doesn't work, don't worry, Deb, you could just say it yourself. Because I do know this in my heart, and I do work in my grandpa's office, looking out the window over his first shop. So every day I feel energized by those values and that legacy. And he was reflecting, you know how as you get into your 90s, not all of us are in our 90s yet, but you take a different view of life, you take a perspective. And you say, what is it that really matters? What is my philosophy? And he was asked, so what is your philosophy? And he said, well, the philosophy is everything has to be absolutely honest. You cannot run a business and be dishonest. It just won't work. You know, who are we working for? Just for Erie Souder? Absolutely not. It's for the community. It's for the employees. They're number one. And our values have to be in that fashion, in that field. And I'm so glad my boys are taking that same thinking. You know, it's very important that we don't put it in some stock off who knows where just to get rich. That's as foolish as you can be. You get the idea you want to get rich. If the Lord blesses you, then use it for His glory. It's just that simple. And it don't make me no difference whether your name is Lutheran or Presbyterian or Catholic or Mennonite or Amish or whatever it is. That doesn't concern me. What concerns me is, do you know Jesus Christ? And then the video fades off with Amazing Grace, and you see a picture of my grandpa in front of the corporate office with the years of his birth to his death, and it says, Erie Souder, a man who made a difference.
I now want to introduce Mike Anderson, who is going to introduce some concepts of a company that is probably a little bit more familiar to most of you. We do have a video for Andersons too, and I hope we can get that queued up.
Because I can't remember like Debbie did.
So
purpose of having a job? What's the job of the CEO of a company or the leader of any company? Now, most people who are active in business, or maybe who are in business school, would honestly and sincerely answer that question. Further, I wonder how well their actions would align with their words. In other words, how well would they walk the talk each and every day? I wonder to what extent the bulk of the answers would basically say that the purpose was pretty simple. Well, there might be flowery mission statements, but when we got down to it, it was to make money. I do know that almost all companies have mission or vision statements or statements of purposes. And oh boy, Kevin, you guys, yours is a wonderful one. I know you guys work hard to live it. And these generally reflect the commitment to an approach to business that is much broader than simply making money. And those purpose statements often have elements that reflect a commitment to things that will contribute to the common good. They often include promises to act ethically and with integrity. I think we've all would say that we've had experiences and perspectives about businesses doing this well. And Dean, you reflected on that. You reflected on that well as you were describing your own interactions with various businesses. But we also have experiences with individuals and businesses who don't walk the talk. In 1996, the Andersons became a public company after about 50 years of being a private family company. Our ownership was now going to be comprised of the general public, whose desire to own our stock for themselves or for their mutual funds that they managed was very much linked to their desire to receive dividends and to see the stock price go up. Frankly, that lined up quite well with what I was hoping for as a substantial owner. At that time, an individual that I had done business with for a number of years and who I'd engaged in several conversations over my years of doing business with him about the purpose of business, challenged me with this thought. Mikey, he used to call me Mikey. Mikey, he said, now it must be easy for you relative to the purpose of the company. I said, knowing exactly what he was getting at, something like, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, don't kid me. You know what I mean. Your mission now is pretty simple, shareholder value. Increase shareholder value. My answer then and now is also very simple. No, that is not our sole reason for being in business. That is not our sole job, and it never will be. He went on to say, I hope you don't tell your new owners that. Which I said, I sure do. We do firmly believe that our ultimate mission in the business is all about service. And that we have concurrent responsibilities to multiple constituents. We saw that in the Sauter core values and their mission. To the constituents or stakeholders that we try to both balance, not just balance, but we try to optimize. This heritage and sense of purpose comes directly from my grandfather, Harold Anderson. It was passed on to his children, and it was embedded in the value system of the company since the day it was founded. And I believe that today, even though we fail regularly, our over 3,500 employees work hard to act in a manner that's consistent with what we stand for. I'll read a few excerpts from our company's statement of principles. Then I'm going to show a 5-minute video, I hope, and then Hal's going to be up here. The video is going to be about business philosophy. It's going to start with some dialogue with my Uncle Tom, who's deceased and passed away several years ago, and my Uncle Dick, who's here today. It also includes some excerpts from a recent film that was made for WGTV that I think many of you have seen. In our statement of principles, we state, the company is founded on a belief that all of us are subject to a higher and divine authority, and that we should aspire to goodness, integrity, fairness, and respect, maybe the common good, I guess. We believe that possession of these qualities develops self-esteem, merits the approval of others, and enhances both the private and public welfare. We believe in the free enterprise system. I'll stop there. This document, this pontifical document, clearly supports the free enterprise system. And I didn't expect that. I liked what I read there. fair competition, the incentives of profit and personal gain, and the importance of capital accumulation. We also believe that profit or personal gain must never come at the expense of personal integrity or the public welfare. We recognize that our competitive economic system makes it essential that we place constant and primary focus on satisfying the needs of our customers, without whom there is no corporate purpose. We also understand that our business will not survive if it does not meet the legitimate needs and aspirations of our employees and shareholders. We all should recognize that in these efforts we should not lose sight of our fundamental responsibilities to our families, to our communities, and to society as a whole. I do believe that, that we at the Andersons work hard to walk the talk. I also know that as we try to do this, we often do fail, and that we make mistakes. And that one person's interpretation of doing something that is for the common or greater good may not be interpreted the same way by someone else. And we're not always right in how we treat customers. We're not always right in how we treat our employees or our shareholders. We make judgments about being in businesses that we think reflect logic and the common good which other people can criticize. For example, we make and distribute and sell fertilizer to farmers in this area. We know that our products feed and nourish plants and help provide food to the world. We're proud of that. We also know that some of these products in this area get off the field into the Maumee River Basin and contribute to the proliferation of toxic algae. We're also proud to be part of a homegrown fuel industry, an ethanol industry. Yet there's a concern by some that this could be immoral, to take a food crop, corn, and convert it into fuel. These are but a few examples of some of the challenges that we face in trying to put our service mission into practice. Before showing the video, I'd like to share a couple of statements from our new Pope, Pope Francis. He made these a couple of weeks ago. He said, "Let us never forget that authentic power is service, and that the Pope, too, when exercising power, must enter more fully into that service." He added, "Please, I would like to ask all of those who have a position of responsibility in economic, political, and social life, and all men and women of goodwill, let us be protectors of creation, protectors of God's plan inscribed in nature, protectors of one another and of the environment. Let us not allow omens of destruction and death to accompany the advance of this world." I think this guy gets it, by the way. We will try to show this video and see how it works.
There's no question about the fact that service is, in my mind anyhow, is the fundamental reason that you're in business. Doing something useful. And then if it's useful enough, you'll make a profit.
Harold had a vision of creating a family partnership, the emphasis being on family. He truly believed that the mother played a critical role in creating the environment at home that would foster success in business. He saw in Margaret Mylick all the qualities he valued in a wife, mother, and partner. There was one problem. She was Catholic, he was Protestant.
There was a division of religion, which I thought was sad, and Mom said, "You know, your father is the one who always has to give." And he was a man true to his word. He kept his promises to Mom. The best part for me was to see the unity between Mom and Dad, despite this one big thing.
We had a couple of role models of how to deal with differences, especially when they're so darn tiny. And he'd always get back to, why do we want to argue about what we disagree on? We agree on everything that's important. Let's get to work. His vision was to be able to gather the farmer's grain in a pretty broad area and get it into water transportation and be able to pay a higher price for the grain and attract a lot of grain to the one location. They stopped at the dock first and got their load probed and samples run, and then the farmer could see what the grade was and what we were going to pay for that before they even went over the scale. Then they went over the scale and they found out how much their total load was worth before they dumped. And then after they dumped, of course, they were satisfied. This was a deal. If they didn't like it after they went over the scale, they could drive out and take it somewhere else. And so that all helped to build the trust, you know.
The Big Pour was big news because Harold chose to use a bunch of college boys instead of union workers to build his new 3 million bushel elevator.
There was plenty of heat around that, and we just quietly went about our business. And then whatever happened, then we'd deal with that. And all the time explaining why our system was appealing to our people. So what our people thought was everything to us. We never had our people say, you're unfair, ever, you know, throughout all this stuff. When they were trying to get cards signed and everything else, they just liked the way we went about it. That doesn't say you didn't have people who had complaints. You always have that, and you have to deal with that the right way too. Open door policies and listening and fixing it when you're wrong and admitting it when you're wrong. All those things are so important in any organization.
When you get right down to it, the customer is necessary. The employee is necessary. The owner is necessary. Is there any such thing as a little more necessary than something? No. When something's necessary, it's necessary. We're using the wrong term when we're asking what's something's important. These three constituencies are essential. You've got to serve the interests of the employee, the customer, the owner, and if you don't, the company will fail. The difference is urgency. Which of these is the most urgent usually? And that becomes the customer, because it only takes, what, 10 seconds to lose a customer? How long does it take to lose an employee? Longer than that, usually, I would say, or an owner. And I like the analogy that air, water, and food. Well, what's the most important there? Air, water, food? Well, air, of course. Why? Because, you know, if you don't have any air in 3 or 4 minutes, you're dead. Well, then what happens if you don't have any water? Well, in 3 or 4 weeks, you're dead. Or 3 or 4 days. But the net result is the same.
Cultural aspects, the real dedication to service that we've had since the beginning, starting with Dad's example. And I've said many times, I think today it's stronger than it's ever been here.
I don't know, there's probably a handful of people in the crowd who've seen that very film a lot of times. Fran, maybe a few people who've seen it too many times? Okay, all right, I understand that, but that's okay. You know, I didn't grow up in Toledo, Ohio. I grew up outside of Cleveland. I left to go away to college at Miami, Ohio. And as I was in college, my folks moved to Northwest Ohio. I knew virtually nothing about Toledo, had a little history here because my dad grew up here. Didn't know anything at all about the Andersons. So, coming into town, and I did work 2 years at another location, not the Andersons, before I started the Andersons. I've been there over 33 years right now. So, I want to talk to you very briefly about the last 20 or 25 years of my life, including my career at the Andersons, and an analogy in my personal life, if you will. You know, I management position at the Andersons, 8 kids. People would say, you're not an Anderson, but you married one? No, I married well, but I didn't marry an Anderson. So, as I get into this analogy, what I want to talk a little bit about is the role of leadership. The role of leadership in how it can bring us forward into this learning process, learning of the vocation of businesses as well as the other aspects. So I want to liken the Andersons family leadership in their role of teaching me about the vocation of business and business leadership to my wife's role and some few close friends in my own faith development. Okay? what the leaders in each case did was to live and to show me certain aspects of what they did and what they found valuable that connected my heart and my head and my soul, something that resonated through my entire body, something that created a passion within me that I said, that is absolute truth. I understand that completely. It fills every fiber in your body. It makes you, we'll talk a little bit about this dual life or this duplicity piece. We'll get into those questions a little bit. But when something connects and creates that passion, it also creates a joy. It creates a happiness about what you're doing. And you can tell from Tom, in his commentary, Tom loved humor. Absolutely loved humor. And it's a piece about the connectivity of making yourself truly happy inside. It comes out. It's that joy and that passion that resonates with who we are and how we do the things we do. The panel's going to talk quite a bit about a number of different questions. We'll get into those specifics about the situations, and I think all of those things will help everybody understand it better than any further sharing the story. What I can tell you is this, whether I would say the same thing about finding my wife as I would say about working for the Andersons. I feel very blessed to have been in a position where I found someone who can lead me to teach me the things that get at my core being and matter to me every minute of every day. So, thank you.
Are you ready? The first question deals with that divided life. How do you avoid living a divided life? Stated differently, how does your faith play itself out in your daily work? And maybe Debbie, could you lead us off on that one? But I'd love to hear from all four of you.
Sure, be glad to. Can you hear me? Test. I got this. Test. We'll just pass it around, that's fine. Well, really, I feel that my life's journey has brought me to a place where my faith and my work are intertwined, not divided. Growing up in the Mennonite faith that emphasized service and humility, and then marrying a Methodist minister and embracing the Methodist focus on social justice, then spending the first 20 years of my professional career in the healthcare field, really helping people at death's door come out of a coma and learn to talk again. Those were times of ministry. And then the joy of coming back to carry on the legacy of my grandfather and be able to lead Souter Village and carry on his dream. You heard those values that my grandfather would have expressed on the video that I tried to express to you. And certainly those have all helped me to see work and faith in tandem. Each day I try to be receptive, I try to listen to God's guidance. Hopefully sometimes I follow it. And I try to encourage others that work around me to grow in their professional and personal lives, to offer them the flexibility to be with their families, to do things in their churches, to help in the community, and to build trusted relationships. And we really develop, I think, a sense of a caring community, the Souter Village family. And I think for that, it's really my faith in action, and all of us working together, no matter what faith we profess.
Okay. How about this one? Does this work? Yes? Okay. Try that too. That was not okay. Right. Well, sometimes Christian business people tend to wear their Christ on their sleeve, and they bring up God's will and Christ in every conversation, and there's prayers before everything, and that can be a good thing, but that can also make some people feel uncomfortable. It kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. And so I try to live my life as Christ would live, but not wear it on my sleeve, if you will. And so it's important to, we do have our sales force, our customer base is Jewish, is Muslim, is atheist, is others. And I do want to be very inclusive of everyone. I think when they get to know me, I've had to answer what is a Mennonite about 1,000 times. But it does give me an opportunity to talk about service and community. And no, we literally don't raise barns like the Amish, but they're kind of, figuratively, we do. And we do live in community. We do live for service. And we do try to live the life of Christ. But we do it in perhaps a little quieter, service-oriented way.
Yeah, I'd comment just briefly on the divided piece of life. And for me, I think I've had the luxury or the blessing of being quite busy. Okay, so whether it's work busy or a handful of moves or 8 kids or whatever else it is, what I've found is that I've limited a whole bunch of things that are maybe not important to me. Okay, I mean, I don't fish, I don't golf, I don't hunt, you know, a lot of things. A lot of that was just because there wasn't time. Okay, growing a career and a family and everything else. So the things that I do today are either work-related, family or friend-related, or faith-related. And generally, the family and faith-related pieces tie in, you know, pretty closely. Now, I don't spend a lot of time at work, as you said, praying before meetings or anything else. So, but it is just how I live. It's just another 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 hours of that day. So it's just gotten to a point for me over the last few decades where there is no difference, no matter where I am. The conversations I have, the things I say and do, the way I act, and hopefully the things that people see, it's all the same, and there's no switch that turns on or off when I go in or out of the office. So that I've been lucky, I think, and blessed maybe because I could get pretty intense in certain things. So I just haven't had the opportunity to be able to do that given my life and my career. So I'm happy about that.
You know, I thought you prayed before your meetings with me all the time. It's a really, really deep question, and try and sift through it. For me, in essence, is I hope I act in a manner that could be evidenced by a care for others more than me. I know I fall short on that a lot. And then part of that care, hopefully, is being willing to take criticism, to take feedback, and process it. Then maybe one other thing is, okay, so do those value statements that are on the wall, do those mission statements, do you really buy it? Can you judge yourself every day, go home and judge yourself and say, yeah, I worked hard to make sure that what I did there at work is consistent with what I did elsewhere. I'll give you an example of not walking the talk. Was in a room with a number of people, and it was just guys, and we would have this meeting every 6 weeks or so for years. And it had gotten actually pretty earthy over time with language which just, frankly, with retrospect, was not proud of. And somebody 2 layers down said, can I stop the meeting? And said, language like that's not appropriate here. You know, my quick reaction for a second was, oh, come on. And then it was, thank you for speaking up. You hope you create an environment where people can speak up about what's really important.
The next question. The 6 principles sound good on paper. Can you give some concrete examples of decisions related to product or personnel that you really had to struggle with as a company? Mike, you alluded to a couple of those in your presentation. I know we also talked about offering various products in the general store. Maybe you could lead us off on that question, and anyone else who wants to pitch in.
I literally could go days on this, but a couple quick ones, Dean. I mentioned the challenge, fertilizer, nutrients, food, you're eating it. It's necessary to live. But how you manage the negative side effects of what you do and the ability and the willingness to be open about what you think is something that's really good, and then you get feedback that is not. In this town, we know the impact of asbestos. It was good until it wasn't good. In our stores, we make judgments around the willingness to offer alcohol, wine, and beer, and Grandpa probably did backflips because that happened after Grandpa was gone. And we elected not to offer cigarettes and lottery tickets. And I'm not going to sit here and try and pass judgment on that, but those are decisions that we made. Quickly on the people front, a couple things. We recently closed our Woodville store. 100 and some people that you tell we're not doing good enough and make a judgment around that I don't have a job for you is really, really difficult. On a very micro sense, though, and a different thing, I think that one of the challenges of leaders is to act with integrity about willing to confront performance when it's not where you need it to be, and that you do no one a favor if you aren't willing to look somebody in the eye and say, listen, our objective is X, you're not doing the job to get there, we got to understand, and it's, I think, just as indication of behavior that lacks integrity not to deal with that is some of the other stuff that I mentioned.
We had one brief one there. This question was actually for Mike or Hal, and you touched on it. Your statement of principles talks about serving God. In going public, was there pressure to change that statement, and how did you deal with that pressure? Hal, would you want to take it? Since
I'll start and I'll let maybe Mike or Dick finish the story in its totality, but we did have those conversations when we had some outside folks come in to help us go public many years ago, and I was sitting in the room at the conversation when that question got asked, and I don't know if any of you ever sat at the table with Dick, but he starts to wring his hands a little bit. It's a bit of a, it's a noticeable act that occurs in the room, and that happened. I'll let Mike talk about the specifics of the conversation, but it was a very memorable experience for me. So.
Well, the specifics are God's in the mission statement. If you read through, I really encourage you to read the statement of principle, because we talk about the fact that the company is a powerful vehicle through which we channel our time, talent, and energy in the fundamental pursuit of serving God by serving others. And Kevin, you mentioned you've got people of all faiths, just as we do, or no faith for that matter. But the biggest thing in there is that we say that the founding family believes in a higher authority, and that is why it is there, and that's true. That is actually part of the, it's not a word, it's the history, it's what we believe in. But what we say we're really about is service. We are here to serve. We are here for more than just selfishness.
Kevin or Debbie, any comparable conversations? No? Where and how is philanthropy expressed in your mission? How do you determine where philanthropy is being directed, and how has that evolved over your history? Kevin, you want to launch us on this one?
Sure. We had a few really, really good years in the mid-'80s. And we became quite generous during that time period. We built a local library in Archibald. We funded big buildings in some of our church institutions and others. And it was a wonderful time. We had a 2 or 3 year jump in technology on the competition, and we did really well. So we established some philosophies and some history of giving. And Grandpa and Dad and Uncle Merle had been giving all along. They had given X% of the profits all along to various institutions. A lot of them were church-related institutions. Just a few years ago, when we finally started making money again, we sat down and said, we do have money to give, and we want to give it in the right way. But perhaps our employees weren't necessarily Mennonite. May want to have it given to some other institutions besides, say, Mennonite Church College or something like that. And so we also then, in the meantime, have a couple of family foundations. Merle and Frida and their family have a foundation. My parents have a family foundation, and that's built up some over time, and it's going to be rather substantial over a number of years. And so we have the opportunities to give personally or through family foundations to institutions that may be truly personal. Mennonite associated things, or our our son is autistic, and so we give to autism-related things. We have other issues that we try to donate to personally and through our family foundation. I don't necessarily need to make the company's philanthropy reflect our personal giving, because I have the opportunity to do that otherwise. So our board helped me work through it just in the last couple of years, and we decided, we should give to where our employees live. Our employees live primarily in the four-county area of Northwest Ohio: Fulton, Henry, Williams, and Defiance County. About 80% of them live there. And so we decided we're going to give 90% of our donations to those four counties. So it's United Way, it's a school, it's a playground, it's all the things that make our employees' lives better, and the communities where they live. And so that has changed. And I guess I have to explain that to people who remember us from the old years, and particularly some of the Mennonite institutions that come calling, and I say, well, we have other opportunities to give to you, but let's go to those people for those gifts.
I want to talk just a little bit about the atmosphere at the Andersons around an encouragement individually for people to be involved. It is very simple and very well supported within the company for you to take on whatever philanthropic role, reasonable philanthropic role that you may want. So whatever it is, your passion, whatever it is matters to you deeply, to take the time and to potentially involve the company, if it works that way, but to make sure that you spend some portion of your time following the pursuit of the things that are important to you in a philanthropic way is very clearly evident within the company, and it matters a lot. That whole aspect of service and generosity is built upon that, and it's lived within the business to allow people to do those kind of things that they're passionate about themselves. And that's a very important piece, I think, of how the company works for us.
Well, I just might say that at Souder Village we are the charity.
And one of our biggest donations goes to Souder Village.
But we do engage a spirit of generosity. And I think that it's notable to say that all of our board, all of our leadership team, our staff ambassadors, group and volunteer committees are reaching out at the grassroots level and giving people that work for Souder Village and at Souder Village and volunteer their time there to also give back in many ways, and they do. And isn't that a wonderful thing, that people that are working at a charity believe in it so much that they give not only their heart and soul and their time, but they give their resources and ideas as well. And we do partner with other organizations. We try to offer things where we can. We're part of the community, and we appreciate that opportunity.
As more and more key positions in your organizations are filled with non-family members, is it difficult to maintain your core principles and values? Debbie, would you lead us off on this one?
Sure, I'd be glad to. And you ask, is it difficult? I guess the short answer is no, because we have and attract the right people, and we know the cultural fit that's needed. As Kevin mentioned earlier, we do have some family rules, so those of us in the third generation have definitely had to follow those rules to come back at the right time for the right job with a proven track record in our respective professions. And I think that helps with the transition and with the mutual respect with non-family and family members in leadership and people that have been with the organization a long time, and those of us in the third generation that are partnering with them. But I know at Souder Village we make a very intentional effort of selecting leaders that have a passion for what we do and that can build positive, trusting relationships. You know, you can teach them a lot of things, but you can't teach them that. And so we know that's a good start. And we also are privileged, as Kevin introduced a few of those earlier, our board members. We have other multiple generation family business leaders that have committed their time to the Souder Village board. Dick Anderson, of course, we mentioned, Ed Knopfsinger from Haasdor in Wasion, and our first ever non-family chairman of Souder Village, Dean Spangler from Spangler Candy in Bryan. And I know for my dad, when he retired last year, it was one of the biggest reliefs and honors to know that Dean would take on with enthusiasm and passion the commitment to lead Sauter Village. So yes, it's been great having non-family members with the same commitment and passion.
I think the question is a great question. Of course, it presumes that it's easy having the values there with families too. Of course, the vast majority of family businesses don't make it past the second generation, so we're happy to be where we are. I think it's a challenge around having core values really well articulated and understood, whether it's family or not. Maybe it adds some other dimensions as you're going through growth. We're now in roughly 20 states, Puerto Rico. In fact, I met our first Canadian employee today. And we've got about 80 physical different locations, communities that we're in. So we have, whether family or not, we're going to have challenges around that. Around the year 2000, our staff went to the University of Michigan for a strategy session, and one of the areas of focus was around our mission statement and statement of principles, and whether our focus on these, call it altruistic values, or maybe getting in the way of being successful. We came away from that with a renewed commitment to it. One of the things we've done, we've instituted what we call a statement of principles class, and the faculty are our leadership team, which are almost all non-family. I do know that if you're going to do really well in anything you value, if you want to have the best safety ethic performance in the world, if you want to have the best financial performance, you have to really be committed at it and work at it. And the same with what you stand for. So you just can't put it up on the wall. You have to work at it as hard as anything else. So yeah, it's difficult, but it is the job.
You know, you get what you reward. And so if you reward good behavior, if you reward integrity, if you promote people who are people persons and not people that just are short-term goal-oriented, people get that. They see it. They see who's getting promoted. They see who's getting rewarded. They see who we're hiring. And people buy into that. You know, we hire some very creative people, some talented people in our design and merchandising area. They see that. They see that we're a different place to work. And part of it is how we reward people. And it's the whole person. And I think that's critical, whether they're family or not family. We're all part of the same team. My senior team, 3 of us are family and 3 are not. It's our family. I try very hard to treat everybody the same. They're all very talented individuals. And they should be rewarded in the same way, and they're rewarded appropriately.
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions. And this is a topic that came up when I had lunch with the 4 panelists. And it deals with humility. The question is, Jim Collins in From Good to Great talked about level 5 leadership entailing a unique combination of fierce determination and self-effacing humility. Do you feel that humility is important to the way you approach your job? What does that mean? Hal, would you lead us off?
Thanks, Dean. You know, I talked about a couple of characteristics that were key to me as a person. I talked a little bit about passion, talked about truth. I have 3, and I'm trying to be very simple, keeps me out of trouble. And the third, for me personally, is passion, truth, and humility. And from my own personal perspective, the humility piece seems to be difficult for business people. It's just, I think, a natural to want to succeed and do well and make great decisions. So I think it's not an easy thing to learn, but as a youngster, there was always a few things that struck me in church or in other places where I heard different readings or different perspectives about what humility really meant. And to me, it just seemed like, back in those days, an easy way for me to be not in the limelight, not under the radar. Just stay out in a place where I could keep doing the things I like to do, not to be bothered. And although that's not a good perspective as a leader, it did teach me some things about how to do things with humility. So what I find is that it's very difficult. and it can be very difficult. But the most important thing from my perspective is when you see how that works with people, the simple act of listening is probably, listening well, is probably one of the most humble things a person can do. To truly sit and listen and try to understand and respond back to a comment or a question, it's not a normal business practice. Okay, so, but what it does is it creates a certain trust or a certain value of goodwill that is created between people, and it connects on a very human level. And it shows a great deal of respect. And in our organization, things like respect or trust or personal goodwill are so key to being able to be successful that it's just, again, very obvious as to who succeeds, how people do well, and how people can create an environment where others do extremely well. And to let others do extremely well, you have to stand back and you have to allow others to do their job really well and to just blossom in who they are and what they're capable of doing. So humility is really at the core, I think, of a lot of the values that we as a company and myself personally put in front of us each day.
It's easy to be humble with a face like this. You know, whether it's a business relationship with your employee or it's a marriage relationship, a few key words are really important. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I trust you. I believe in you. Those are humbling words. And we as leaders can't be afraid to say those things. I said that this morning to one of my key people already. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And that's important.
You know, Dean, as soon as you spoke the word humility, I looked right over there. And there's that lady in the red over there, my wife. She's got this big smile on her face. Do you think it's because she thinks I'm just so humble? She'll get up and do this periodically. It's very hard to talk, yourself about humility. I know, speaking of women, my mother said to me quite some time ago, Michael, darling, I love you immensely, but sometimes I wish you'd just shut up and listen. I think it's important to really ask reflect on have other people reflect on you. It's tough to look in the mirror and really know if you're humble. You can say the words around it, but easier said than done. But so important.
Well, and I would just add something that our dad often talked about, living in a town like Archbold, a small town, it keeps you very humble and honest and helps you live in the way that you should live. It's pretty hard to do the wrong thing or treat your neighbor wrong when you're going to see them at the ballpark or their kids in the play and musical with your kid, or you're in the discussion group at church with them. It really is humbling. It helps be a barometer for the way we should live.
I just want to add one thing. There is a really, really good book. It's very short. It's called The 5 Temptations of the CEO, and it could apply to anyone, but it's really worth reading around this topic.
One last question. Are you comfortable with the term, the common good? And what does that mean to you?
You said I get to start on this one. The common good, consistent with divine will. Whose common good? Whose divine will? I think that is a real rough one. I think it's really appropriate. And I think for those of us in what we do in life and in business, it's important to gauge around really important stuff. I brought up the fertilizer example, the ethanol. I don't know what's right. I don't really know what the common good is all the time, but I think it's terribly important to be willing to really, over the years, and really engage in what you do and how you do it, and be willing to be impacted by it, because even with the best of intentions, you can veer and need to come back. I think it's, so yes, I'm really comfortable, but it's not just a simple little phrase you have a quick answer to. Over time, you'll be able to look back, and those around you can look back and say, for the most part, was on the right side, or on the side of trying to do the right thing the right way and make course corrections when needed.
Yeah, as Mike said, it's a difficult definitional term. It means something slightly different or vastly different to everybody in this room. But there are some core principles, I think, that virtually everybody in this room could also identify with it. So we need to do whatever we can to impact ourselves as an individual person, to learn all we can learn, to learn who we can trust in these kind of matters to help guide us. If we're making decisions without the impact of somebody else's learned or historical perspective, and we're trying to do these things on our own, it's a lack of humility. So our ability to change course partway through when we've learned something new, or to use other people as sounding boards or historical perspectives as sounding boards or examples, I think is really important for us to try to get a good base in what that common good truly is, because, as I said, as an individual, we're all flawed, and it's going to be different for everybody. So we really have to have a broad perspective of how we're doing that and how to do it well and how to do it better tomorrow, because it can change a bit as the circumstances change, but there are core things that really will never change that we also have to adhere to make sure that they're part of who we are and part of what our being is, and we don't stray from the things that truly are, we could truly rationalize away as a human being. There are things that we have to adhere to forever. So
I think I would just add, for those of us that are Rotarians, it's very similar to the four-way test. You know, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Just reminds us of the common good.
I'll let you have the last word.
So the four of you asked for one last wrap-up of a minute or two each. So I'll pass the mic back, and anything you want to wrap up.
I think, first of all, having Lourdes University do this is really, really worthy. There's a lot more academic institutions who are putting in place in their curriculum and the substance, this whole concept of integration of what you stand for in faith and work. And so I just say I'm really pleased to be able to be a little bit of a part of it.
Yeah, I think the ability for each of us to make a connection between our personal lives and our business lives deeply, not just a superficial connection, it is really a blessing to allow us to fulfill both aspects of the life, or all of our aspects of our life, in a much more fruitful way, and be much more valuable to humanity in its entirety. So the ability for universities to go through this kind of a process and open up to real life experiences and to teach people the value of this kind of an aspect of their life, especially in the world of business, can help us dramatically. And there was a couple of comments in the writing here about government's role, and I think in my respect, I think from a government perspective, if we look around the world, if businesses were really truly doing their job as well as we all could, much like we would say with ourselves and our families, government's role would simply be to applaud how well we take care of humanity and how well we take care of our people. And so we really got to get back at the core of who we are and running the business and who we're serving. And I think these kind of things that we've put together here today will truly be a help for a long time to come.
Well, again, I would just say that we're truly honored and privileged to be a part of this panel and of the work that Lourdes is doing and the thought that's been brought forth today. As a reminder, I try to remind myself that, you know, we're just stewards of what we've been given. And it's our job during our journey to do the best we can with it and invest and hand it over for the future.
You know, doing the right thing seems like it's like we're giving you a good sermon and you want to go back and do the right thing. But I'm a competitive person also, and I want to give you my perspective on doing the right thing. Actually, it's a competitive advantage. Our customers are some of the biggest, baddest retailers out there. They can be really brutal. And there can be a tendency to fight back the same way and think short term and try to grab the biggest piece of the pie right away. But we've looked at it a little differently, and we think more long term.
And in the end, it's become a competitive advantage. We're one of the few people out there that our customers trust. Some of these buyers are buying tens of millions of dollars of furniture from us every year. They don't want us to screw up. They want to believe in us. And one of the ways they believe in us is that we have integrity. A couple of my competitors, some of them they won't even let them in the door because they don't trust them. So doing the right thing is a good thing, but it can also be a competitive advantage. And we're here at a business forum, and I guess I want to say it can be, it's a win-win. I get back to my business school speak, but it can be a positive thing for everyone. And I encourage you to do the right thing.
Well, I think that was probably one of the more unusual business luncheons that you've been to in a while. And these guys really had to give up themselves to put together these presentations and make themselves vulnerable to answer these questions for our common good. And I know that all of us really appreciate it. Mike, Al, Debbie, and Kevin, thank you so much for making this event possible. We have a small token of appreciation for you. The unusual sized box is Debbie's.
The pink one for the girl.
One last thing that we wanted to do today. As we planned this event, we realized that the leadership contributions of Dick Anderson and his wonderful wife Fran, and Maynard Sauter and his wonderful wife Carolyn would be very present with us today. We're honored to have Dick and Fran with us. Maynard and Carolyn, as Debbie mentioned, are down in Florida enjoying some well-deserved time in vacation. Before we close this program, we wanted to recognize both Dick and Maynard for the noble way in which they have lived their vocations as business leaders. Most importantly, for all of us, they have set both a standard and an example that has inspired all of us to do the same and to do better than we normally would. I realize that the elbow room is tight, but I would really appreciate if we could stand and join in thanking both Dick and Maynard for the inspiration they have provided. So thank all of you for joining us for our inaugural Joseph M. Magliochetti Leadership Summit. As business professionals, I know we all enjoy connecting with each other, learning from each other, and sharing with each other our best practices. Please feel free to continue to connect with your colleagues and know that you are always welcome at Lourdes University. Through your generosity, our students are given the education and funding to make their dreams a reality. Thank you so much. This 2013 Joseph M. Magliochetti Leadership Summit is adjourned.